All right, we are live after the 49ers 26-21 loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars. That guy next to me on the screen, I'm not sure which direction you are next to me, but that's Rob Louder. That's not Kyle Madsen. That's Rob Louder of the Striking Gold podcast, a great podcast that also talks about 49ers. Kyle is indisposed at the moment, but we're changed up the schedule a little bit tonight. Rob was kind enough to lend us his time. Rob, how's it going, man?
It's going great, man. I mean, I wish we were 3-0. It would have been nice to do this with a 4-0. Things would have been a little bit more positive, but inevitably you knew that was going to come back down. But life's great, man. It's good. Just got done doing after every game I do what's called takeaway time, where I basically let the podcast get driven by everybody else's thoughts, and losses are always always interesting. It gets heated. It's basically like a big giant therapy session. So I'm assuming we're going to do something similar right now, which is it's necessary. It's necessary.
Yeah, so I came into this game, anybody who listened to the pod last week, basically saying that if the Niners avoid turning the ball over, they should win this game. Like, the Jaguars are a very beatable team if you don't turn the ball over. Turns out Niners turned the ball over 4 times. The Jaguars scored 17 points off of those turnovers. The Niners also allowed a special teams touchdown on a punt return, and they only lost by 5. And what I've been sort of thinking about is trying to decide, like, is that a silver lining? Is it like, man, all this bad stuff happened and you still only lose by 5? Or is it like, how can you let all of this bad stuff happen? Like, because you should be so much better than that, even with all of the injuries. Where do you sort of stand on that?
I had the same thoughts, and I think it would be a silver lining if this were I'm still a little unsure on how good or bad the Jags team is. But I think if this were, let's say, the Thursday's game against the Rams and the game unfolded the exact same way, then you're kind of talking yourself out of the fact, well, this wasn't really a game you expected the 49ers to win anyways, but they made all these mistakes and it was still close. But when it comes to the fact that it was the Jaguars, and this kind of felt like one of those games that could build up a little bit of a cushion before they play the Rams, before they play the Buccaneers on the road, it's harder to take it as a silver lining thing, especially
Yeah.
when so much of it did fall on the offense. And if you're looking at a side of the ball they're both affected by injuries a lot. But to me, as time went on, when I kept talking about the Nick Bosa injury over and over and over, I started to feel like, it's gonna hinder the defense a lot. But maybe the pressure really falls on the 49ers offense, because that's a unit. Your head coach is the offensive guy that should be able to shoulder that burden a little bit. And for the most part, I was actually pretty impressed with the defense. I know they gave up points, but I felt like they were constantly put into bad situations. So I feel like a lot of this burden falls on the offense. So it's a bit tough to have the silver lining thing when you're like, well, this was the Jags. It wasn't a team that you necessarily expected to compete or lose to. And they found a way to do it anyways with 4 takeaways to 0. So it's tough.
Yeah, and some of it too. Well, I mean, I could go a few different directions. Trevor Lawrence wasn't very good, which I think is one of the frustrating parts about it, because, I went into the season saying, the 49ers schedule is favorable, not only from like a strength of schedule, looking at last year's winning percentages from all their opponents. Their strength of schedule is easy because they have all these games where they should have the advantage at quarterback. And you would think, based on what we've seen from the last couple of years, that Brock Purdy is substantially, maybe not substantially, but Brock Purdy has played at a higher level than Trevor Lawrence. And Mike Sando's quarterback tiers, I think, illustrated that. I think generally the smart people in the league believe Brock Purdy plays a position at a higher level than Trevor Lawrence, while Trevor Lawrence, of course, has all the traits that made him a number 1 overall pick. So it's frustrating. I think it should be frustrating for the 49ers to lose this game, because Trevor Lawrence, it wasn't like they got cooked by a good quarterback. It was mistakes. And to your point about the defense, the Niners defense only allowed 3 points after halftime. In the second half, the Jaguars offense only generated 3 points, and they did have that missed field goal at the end that kept the 49ers in it, or kept them kept the game within reach or winnable with a touchdown there. So yeah, I thought the defense did well, but I do think the pass rush is concerning. And one of the other things I thought about a lot leading into this game was, okay, if you get to 4-0 against Jacksonville in a game that you should win, then you can look at, playing the Rams, and you can look at playing the Bucks the following week without Nick Bosa, and then sort of determine what you need to do from maybe a trade standpoint, or how you
Right.
approach like acquiring somebody to replace Nick Bosa. Um, but they sort of lost that opportunity because they're not going into those games 4-0. Not that, like, they'll be able to evaluate everything, but it would have been so much more beneficial for the 49ers to go into those, probably the two toughest games they have on their schedule, at the Rams on a short week on Thursday night, and then at Tampa Bay the following week, to go into those games 4-0 and come out of it no worse than 4-2 is a pretty good spot to be in. But now that you're 3-1 and you're in danger of being 3-2 in a matter of 4 days, that's just tough. And I don't think it was a trap game from the standpoint of like, oh, the 49ers are overlooking the Jaguars. I just think they didn't execute. And I think the injuries, of course, played a role, and Brock Purdy being injured played a role. He definitely wasn't sharp, but he didn't get much help either. Kendrick Bourne dropping a bunch of passes. They had that brutal sequence where Bourne dropped that third down conversion. That would have been third down conversion. The very next play, the punt goes for the touchdown.
Yep.
Right. There was, the fumble that has nothing to do with Brock Purdy. Luke Farrell in the first half, fumble, and then very next play, a 48-yard touchdown for Travis Etienne. It just kind of felt like the Niners, there would be like these like really big moments, and instead of the 49ers like just making the plays they need to make, the Jaguars just went down and capitalized with big plays and touchdowns in those two instances specifically. And in a game that's decided by 5 points, man, that's just killer.
It really does put the 49ers in a tough spot. And I think I'm going back to what you mentioned about the trade stuff. I had an interesting question asked of me during the takeaway thing. It's like, how do you approach this loss? Like, because your pass rush was non-existent. They did not hit the quarterback. They did not. I mean, maybe Pro Football Focus are add a little bit of context there, but
No,
they didn't get a.
real quick on that. Matt Mayoko tweeted out, in the 49ers' first game without Nick Bosa, their defense had no sacks and no quarterback hits for the first time in a game since September 20th, 2015 against the Steelers. So basically a decade.
What was
That
that? Jim
was their
Tomsula?
Yeah, Jim Tomsula was 2015.
Right.
So I saw our buddy Nick Wagner tweeted out a bunch of stats, and it was also apparently Robert Sala's lowest blitz rate of the season, which I thought was interesting. Anyway, get sorry to interrupt you.
No. It's needed context for what I'm about to say, because it's like, okay, like if you're John Lynch and you're looking at this, you're Kyle Shanahan and you're looking at this, you're like, what did we just see from that game? Because we saw a defensive front that wasn't even close to pressuring the quarterback. Now, one of the things I noticed leading up to this game is the Jaguars' offensive line is pretty good. They haven't been giving up a whole lot to any team. But you're looking at things, you're like, we couldn't even execute against the Jaguars. We couldn't beat the Jaguars. And like you said, there's a good chance that they're 3-2 in a matter of 4 days. And now you're looking at a team where you're like, well, we can try and get the absolute best pass rusher that's available, no matter how much we're trying to give up for them. And that might put our defensive front back up to somewhere close to where it was pre-Nick Bosa. Or you're looking at this like, well, we weren't even close. So why should we dump a bunch of draft resources into a defensive front that we think is really, it's kind of just like a Band-Aid. You know what I mean? You're not even really pushing it over to the top. We're not one player away. I'm not trying to overreact to it all, but to be shut down that cleanly really makes it hard to think, oh, well, we're one player away from just kind of taking that up a notch. It seemed like, no, you're a few players away from it. And I'm not even sure that Nick Bosa would have made the difference in that game. It's one play. Nick Bosa made the difference against Seattle. Bryce Huff made the difference against the Saints. But it's tough to say that just trading for a pass rusher is going to fix what we saw against the Jaguars, especially when you go back to the fact that it really feels like it fell on the offense. The defense didn't have 4 turnovers. They didn't force any turnovers. They got close. That's it. Really, some of that seemed like one of those, like, sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't. Brett,
It did feel like turnover luck was a thing today.
right?
And like
Yeah,
obviously Brock wasn't sharp and some those picks were like deserved, but like the Niners had their hands on a lot of footballs today and they didn't get a single one.
no,
And that's not to say that, not using that as an excuse, but sometimes injury luck does happen. And also we should point out, I rewatched the Upton Stout interception. Man, that was I don't really know what the officials saw to call a pass interference there.
that's his
That
second
seemed like
huge play that he's had taken away by a penalty. Where you're like he's a brand new rookie being forced into a starting role as a third rounder. Like you want to see him make those plays, and you feel like he is
yeah,
making them. And both of them were taken away by penalties where you're like, well, I don't know. I
I
don't
didn't
know.
see it.
And they
There
went
were
on to score that drive, did they not?
they did. Yeah, there were a ton of penalties today. Which, like sometimes that happens. I'm looking. Jaguars had 12. Niners obviously benefited from all those, but Jaguars had 12 penalties, Niners had 5. But you do wonder what that game looks like if that Upton Stout interception does go there. Like a lot was made in the broadcast about, the Niners haven't had an interception this year, and going back, I think it's 11 games total or
Right.
whatever. And sometimes it's just luck, sometimes it is luck. And that's not to say, like, when it comes to turnovers, like turnover luck is a real thing. I'm not trying to discount the 49ers turning the ball over, because those were Jaguars are punching at the ball. The one that Christian McCaffrey tipped and got intercepted, they had that play figured out. The Jaguars defense did. You could hear their defenders being like, we saw that stuff coming. Um, and like you could hear them saying that, and a throw over the middle of the field to a guy who's triple covered. It wasn't a great throw, but the
Is
issue
that the
is,
one? Is that the one where he said we saw that stuff coming?
yeah,
Yeah, because
yeah,
that was it. Didn't matter that ball was tipped. Like I'm looking at
yeah,
that replay and I'm like, okay, if the ball's not tipped, it's just getting to that linebacker a little bit faster. Like that ball was getting intercepted either way. Now the other one, the Christian McCaffrey one, you're like, that ball's a couple inches lower, and
mhm.
Christian McCaffrey catches it and it's a big play. But so there's luck there. Whereas the one you're just talking about with Purdy, you're like, yeah, that was never going anywhere.
Yeah. And look, Brock wasn't sharp today. He threw for 309 yards. He had 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, but it just overall he wasn't sharp. And I'm not really sounding the alarm on Brock, not being sharp. I don't feel any differently about Brock Purdy coming out of that game, but it is notable. And I think the injury probably had something to do with it, just some rest from being out a few weeks. But I also think the Niners receiving core in its current form just doesn't separate enough. And you don't have George Kittle as an outlet, on big downs, right? Like the fact that the 49ers can still get the ball in the passing game to Christian McCaffrey in so many high leverage situations speaks to how good Christian McCaffrey is. Because you have Juwan Jennings basically who seems like he's, I don't know, 60, 70% at best,
Right.
playing with the ankle and the shoulder, and it looks like it looked like he got smashed in the ribs on that 2-point
Right.
conversion. Ricky Pearsall is unavailable for most of the second half with his knee. Who knows what it looks like if you have him in the fourth quarter? Like, it just feels like because the Niners receiving core can't get separation, Brock Purdy's holding on to the ball for longer than he's used to, and that's when you see the pocket collapse and you see him bothered by pressure. And it's just not a good formula. Like, that's why Kyle Shanahan values separation skills so much, because the ball's got to get out on time. And when guys aren't separating, then it's not going to get out on time. And that's, again, Brock Purdy was bad today. It's not an excuse for Purdy. There were plenty of throws where he had guys open, but he didn't get much help at all from his receivers. And he also had a bunch of drops. And Kendrick Bourne, that third down that I already mentioned, that they returned the punt one snap later for a touchdown. Like there are just a few plays a few plays that sort of determine this game, where it's like if just one thing goes the other way for the Niners, then you feel like, all right, they probably win that game. But
Well,
again, like it's just got to be frustrating because they should beat the Jaguars at home with the way Trevor Lawrence played. Trevor Lawrence sliding out of bounds is like a fireable offense there late in the game. Like Trevor Lawrence was giving them opportunities. He was inaccurate. He had a couple passes, go off linebackers' hands. Like it was a very winnable game, and I think that's got to be frustrating.
I think the you mentioned a formula. I think probably the worst part of the formula right now is the fact that you're dealing with a Kyle Shanahan offense that cannot run the ball, like not
Yeah, that's a good
routinely,
point.
not consistently. I think right now the 40, and this is in like a polar opposite of what we're used to seeing. I think I checked it earlier. I don't have it in front of me. I think the 49ers are 27th or no, 31st in yards per carry at like
Mhm.
3.3. And I think the Ravens are at like 6 point something, and there's other surprises up near the top as well. But we're we're used to seeing a 49ers offense that is run first, pass later. And you've got Brock Purdy throwing the ball 38 times, mainly because the 49ers just can't. Christian McCaffrey averaged 2.9 yards per carry. And I'm not even necessarily blaming that on Christian McCaffrey. Like, does he look as quick and fast as he did in like 2023? No, not necessarily. But it's not like there's just room for him to run and he just can't hit the hole. It just seems like nothing is working. I have no idea how they fix that at this point in the season. The season's already started. This seems like like there's almost schematic elements that need to change. And the 49ers need to institute different types of a run game that they're not currently using because it's not like they're middle of the pack, and it's just not working as good as they want it to. They're at the absolute bottom of the NFL. And the only team that was worse than them was the Bengals at like a crazy, I think they're at like 2.4 yards per carry, which is just like, that's mind blowingly bad. But the 49ers were right above them. And so if you can't run the ball, of course it's all going to fall on Brock Purdy and it becomes predictable from a defensive standpoint. And then you couple that with into an offensive line that we know the 49ers don't necessarily invest in like a lot of teams do. And then once again, you have another game ending with an offensive line kind of collapsing. And, I know that was a lot, but
No, but I think with the running game in particular, the hope has to be that, okay, you get George Kittle back. That obviously helps just your ability to set edges. Like
right.
George Kittle, probably the best run blocking tight end in the league, for years and years now. And even before this season, when he missed time, there are plenty of numbers that prove the point that Kittle is key to the success of the running game. So you hope you get Kittle back, that improves it. I think there's also the element of, if you don't have your pass catchers and you don't have guys like Brandon Ayuk, Kittle's also a part of that, then it's easier to key on the running game.
Right.
So I think there's that. I think Christian McCaffrey is also just not as explosive as he used to be, which he's a 29-year-old running back who touches the ball, it feels like 30 times every game.
He had 28 touches.
Again, yeah. So like that's the sustainability models aren't
Right.
reacting too positively to giving Christian McCaffrey that many touches. And I think defenses are kind of clued into that. Like they're the Niners are going to live and die with McCaffrey. And if you slow McCaffrey down or at least prevent him from being efficient in the running game, and you force Brock Purdy to have to pass to, like how many snaps is Braden Willis getting? And Kendrick Bourne, who like the Patriots aren't exactly like loaded at receiver and had no problem releasing Kendrick Bourne before the season started. You know what I mean? Like we think fondly of Kendrick Bourne for like how he played in 2019. That was 6 years ago. Like that was a long time ago. So
Starting to feel old pretty quick.
Kendrick Bourne isn't the same player. Demarcus Robinson, I know, is suspended for the first 3 weeks. He showed up a little bit today, but once Brock Purdy got that one completion to him, I think that Brock Purdy tried to go back to the well again, and that's when he threw the other, or that no, that's when he overthrew him on fourth down.
Right. Wasn't even close.
Wasn't close, and it was just, yeah, like I don't feel like I still have faith okay. I still feel like the 49ers are going to be able to run the ball if they get their guys back. And I think Kyle Shanahan will be in better position to take advantage of teams really selling out to stop the run because of those outside receivers. And obviously Ricky Pearsall's part of that too. So like that was the 49ers superpower when they went to the Super Bowl in 2023. It was the fact that like, all right, you're going to sell out to stop the run and you're going to play your linebackers up. Then we're just going to dot the middle of the field with crossing routes and Brandon Ayuk and Brock Purdy is just going to layer it over your linebackers who are trying to play the run. And if your linebackers are trying to play deep and take that away, then we're going to run the ball down your throat.
Right.
And the Niners just can't do that right now. The Niners are much more one-dimensional right now. And it's allowing those linebackers to get more depth in obvious passing situations. And there's the thing you always hear about Kyle Shanahan's offense too, and this is kind of unrelated, but you saw the Seahawks do it in week 1. I think you saw it today on Eric Armstead's forced fumble, to where if Christian McCaffrey's lined up in the backfield and it's a long developing passing play, you can take him out defensively as a check down option with the blitz.
Right.
And then if Christian McCaffrey, if Christian McCaffrey is staying in to pass protect, then the Niners are losing their best pass catcher in those situations. And then it becomes, all right, can Juwan Jennings separate on his bum ankle? Probably not.
To support your point, Christian McCaffrey had 11 targets. Who do you think was the next behind him?
Was it Jake Tonjes?
It is, but which is it's our point. Like, okay, so you've just removed the guy with 11 targets, and now your next best option is Jake Tonjes. So, good luck.
But going back to Brock too, and this is going to sound like I'm making excuses for him. I'm not. The difference between Brock Purdy week 1 is he overcame all of this stuff and led the 49ers on the game-winning touchdown drive in Seattle, despite really not having anybody at his disposal. Although he did have Ricky Pearsall on the deep pass in that last game-winning drive in Seattle. He didn't have Ricky Pearsall for most of the second half today. But the conversation about Brock Purdy has always been like, can he be the guy who elevates the supporting cast around him rather than being the guy that's elevated by his supporting cast? That's been the big difference. And today it was just an example of like, it didn't work. He was not that guy today. So that's, I guess, something to monitor going forward.
Well, and I think one of the benefits of Brock Purdy has always, it's not that he's not that guy. It's that he was so well at operating in a situation where he doesn't have to be that guy. And he's just like the center cog of everything else working together. The run game's working. That's not working. You know, he's able to make the throws that Kyle Shanahan needs him to make. And he just does what the offense requires. And, you know, you can call that a game manager. You can call that, you know, Brock Purdy and the Avengers, whatever you want to call it. We've seen Brock Purdy. I think it was clear that when he stepped into the lineup for the first time, he elevated the offense. But right now, I think the scales have tipped way too far in Brock Purdy's favor as far as what they're asking him to do. I think the fact that you'd much rather things look like what the Jaguars were able to do. They ran the ball 32 times for 151 yards at 4.7 yards per carry. And Trevor Lawrence threw the ball 31 times and completed 21 of them. And we watched that game. Trevor Lawrence didn't look great, but that's an offense much more akin to what we're used to seeing from the 49ers. And they just haven't been able to do it. And it's not even just a Brock Purdy thing. Like, the offense is leaning so far into Brock Purdy that there aren't really, I don't know any quarterbacks that can do that. You know, yes, we've got the Josh Allens of the world, but even then, when you see them getting put in situations where everything is clearly on the quarterback, it still doesn't work more often than it does. It's just, I think the 49ers offense is in a place right now where, you know, when you couple injuries with the fact that the 49ers can't run the ball and the fact that now they've got to pass the ball more, but they're passing it to Christian McCaffrey and Jake Tonjes. It's like, well, what do you expect, man? It's like, what do you expect to happen? And Ricky Pearsall, you know, if you want to go a little bit more positive route, he's just been awesome. Yeah, it sucks that he tweaked his knee. I think they're doing like a precautionary MRI tomorrow, I think it was said. I don't think they expect to see anything there, but you never know. I certainly don't want to go that route. But like, dude, that one-handed back shoulder catch, like that's just silly. Like,
his hands are insane.
It's clear that Pearsall is a really, really good player. Now, you know, didn't have him out there for half the game, and that could have been what makes the difference. But if you're looking for something at least from this game, it's pretty sweet. Pearsall's he's really good. He's really good.
Yeah. Before we move on, I do want to talk about our friends at Lamb Chops. The website is sglambchops.com. Rob, we got to get you some lamb chops, I think. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, I'm wearing my favorite Lamb Chops surf and skate hat. But the website, sglambchops.com, the promo code is candlestick20 to save 20% off your order. The new fall line is out. Lamb Chops clothing is just my favorite. It's all my favorite stuff. I do everything in it. I travel in it. I hang out. I run errands. I work in it. You'll find me often when I'm covering sporting events wearing some Lamb Chops gear. I need this black knit polo that is currently on their website, the black t-shirt. I'm all about it. It's just great gear. And so again, promo code candlestick20 at sglambchops.com for 20% off your first order. And merch is coming. It is en route. So we'll keep an eye out for that, and we will make sure we do a giveaway. Make sure everybody knows that they can get Candlestick Chronicles merch made by Lamb Chops. We're super excited to have that. Candlestick Chronicles is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Rob, you and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this football season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. I was not right this week with my play. I went 6 plays deep. I went Brock Purdy. I had fewer than 243.5 yards. He threw for 309. That did not hit. Trevor Lawrence, I had fewer than 224.5. That did hit. But I went with a couple demon plays, and I went Brian Robinson to snake a touchdown from Christian McCaffrey in a goal line situation. That did not hit. Luke Farrell, thought we might see some play action, roll out to Farrell. It ended up being Jake Tonjes getting the screen for the touchdown, the tight end touchdown for the Niners today. Eddie Pinheiro, half a field goal made. I had more than that. That hit. That was easy. Ricky Pearsall, longest reception. I think the one-hander you just mentioned went for longer than 24.5 yards, so I hit that one. But getting 3 out of 6 doesn't get you paid on a flex play. You need more than that. So took a shot with a lot of plays, got 3 out of 6. But Rob, make sure you download the Prize Picks app today and use code Candlestick to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code Candlestick, like this podcast, Candlestick Chronicles, to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. So, where do the 49ers go from here? They have a short week going against the Rams on Thursday. They might have a Ricky Pearsall injury to deal with. They're not
Might have a
getting
Juwan Jennings injury to deal with.
Might have a Juwan Jennings injury to deal with. They're not getting George Kittle back this week. He's not eligible to come back until the following week against Tampa. John Lynch went on the radio this last week and said that Brandon Ayuk isn't close to returning. So that would indicate that they're not expecting Brandon Ayuk back over these next 2 games. Are we just chalking this up as a schedule loss at this point? Because I kind of think even if you do have Pearsall and Jennings, I mean, it's a tough game. The Rams are one of the best teams in the NFC. But I don't know it's hard for me to feel optimistic going into this Rams game, given the Niners injury situation. How are you feeling about it after today?
The same. It's always been a schedule loss for me. You know, when you take your first look at it and you're like, okay, which games are the 49ers going to lose? This was always one of those to me. The Rams have kind of earned that. You know, they're a playoff team. The 49ers are not. You know, if you're looking for some shred of positivity, the Rams have kind of been going at it like with the teams that they've been playing for a while. They just eat. But did you see what Adonai Mitchell did in the Rams game?
I saw 0 things from the Rams game aside from Tutu Atwell's 88-yard touchdown right at the end.
He did the old I'm scoring a big touchdown, and he let go of the ball before the goal line.
Oh, wow.
Which I thought we'd left behind. I wasn't sure we'd ever see that again.
I don't know if Matt Barrows listens to the pod.
Of course he does.
Friend of the show, Matt Barrows, made Adonai Mitchell his draft crush a couple years ago.
Yes, he did.
And I think the Niners did pretty well by taking Pearsall and not A.D. Mitchell there.
Yeah, he did the whole like hand out in front of him as he was holding the ball, and he
Mm,
just flicked it off of his hand before he'd gotten across the goal line. So
you
not
just don't
great.
do that.
Uh, the point I'm making here is though the Rams for the most part, got into a good battle with the Colts. They got into a really good battle that they probably should have won the week before that against the Eagles. Um, Tennessee Titans matchup doesn't look like it was close. I think it was for a little bit, and then they lost. No, yeah, their only loss was to the Eagles. Okay, I don't know what the Texans game was 14-9. That seems weird, but point being, the Rams have been going through it too. I guess you could say just as much as the 49ers have, only against better football teams. It still just seems like one of those things where it's like it's going to be really tough when I get to that episode later in the week when I'm trying to find some advantage that the 49ers have. It's going to help when we know what Pearsall's status is. It's going to help when we know what Juwan Jennings' status is. But you're also dealing with an offensive line that's going up against another really, really good Rams defensive front. So there's not a whole lot that you can expect from there. Now, I thought I saw something to the effect of the fact that the Rams are a really good rushing offense, but very, very bad in pass protection. So maybe that helps an undermanned 49ers defensive front create some sort of noise against Matthew Stafford. But then again, I mean, they still scored 26 points against the Eagles. They scored 27 points against the Colts. Against the Colts, where I had it up right here. Matthew Stafford completed 29 of 41 passes for 375 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's kind of like that upper echelon play that you're not quite sure the 49ers can handle, because going into this game, and yeah, it was just the Jaguars, but there was still a part of me that was like, well, the win against the Seahawks aged pretty gracefully. That's a good win. The Seahawks look like a quality team. The fact that the 49ers were able to steal that one in Seattle was pretty good. But they've come down to the wire against the Saints. They've come down to the wire against the Cardinals, neither of which seem like they're going to be particularly great teams. So it kind of seems like this Jaguars loss was just a little bit, a turn back towards reality type of thing. How good is this 49ers team really? And then I feel like the Rams is kind of just more of like the hey, this is a playoff team and this is what your team looks like against a playoff team type of thing. That's what it feels like. But divisional games are always weird. They're always weird.
Yeah, I would say if you are trying to be glass half full on the Niners going into this game, it would just be sort of about the history,
Right.
right? It like Kyle Shannon has won a lot of regular season games against Sean McVay and the Rams, and maybe there's having Robert Saleh back. Robert Saleh obviously knows the offense that he's going to go against as well as any offense that he goes against, because of the similarities with what the 49ers do and just how many teams do it throughout the league. Um, and then there's just always the element of Matt Stafford. Like it just always feels like Matt Stafford's a hit away from, like back injury. He's,
The dude
at
had his
that
own
stage
like
isn't
back treatment trailer at the Rams practice facility. Like it's
right.
definitely a hit away.
Right. So can you get Jimmy Garoppolo into the game, which would be kind of a wild subplot to it.
Right.
And I'm not talking about like being dirty. I'm just talking
No,
about
no, no.
like pressuring the quarterback, which the 49ers didn't do consistently. So that'll be difficult. If Matt Stafford has all day and you're not pressuring him, then it's going to be a really long night for the Niners defense. Even though I thought the Niners defense was better today than maybe the numbers and the scoring total indicates. But I
Puka
like the
Nacua
40,
had 15 targets.
and he caught 13 of them for 170 yards and a
It's
touchdown.
like it's like he's like your Madden character, and you just keep throwing the ball to him.
Yeah, so Renardo Green being out, I thought was a sneaky thing today. It
True.
wasn't a huge absence, but you feel a hell of a lot better with Renardo Green playing at cornerback than you do with Daryl Luter. Um, so that'll be interesting. I would imagine if Green is not back, that Puka Nacua is just going to be on his side of the on Luter's side of the field the entire time, and they're just not going to have him on Diamador Lenore. Or if they do, they can. The nice thing if you're the Rams is you can put Devontae Adams on Daryl Luter's side of the field and feel pretty good about that matchup too. So yeah, it's hard to feel great about this matchup for the 49ers given how banged up they are on offense and the fact that their pass rush was pretty anemic today, and maybe Robert Saleh will dial up some more blitzes against the Rams. But
There was that. I don't mean to cut you off, but there was. I cannot remember the context around the play where it seemed like Robert Saleh dialed up the perfect blitz. I think it was on like 3rd and short. It was clear that they were going to get there. And in some respect, that doesn't mean Trevor Lawrence can't make a play. And then they got flagged for either delay of game or a false start. It was later in the game, and Robert Saleh dialed up a blitz, and it just seemed like it was perfectly played, and it all got wiped out for that penalty. And I think they ended up doing something with that drive. I know that's just the worst description of it, but you know how it is watching these games. It all kind of just flows through.
yeah,
Um, it just seemed like if Robert Saleh didn't blitz a lot, that one blitz stands out when the fact that it was going to work, and it seemed like it was going to be a splash play, and then a penalty ended up wiping it out. And I believe they ended up going to scoring anyways, or at the very least, it was a field goal. I'm not sure, but tough spot.
yeah. Robert Saleh is an effective blitzer. He doesn't blitz a lot. He's very selective, but when he does, I think he does a good job. Um, and it obviously helps when you have, you know, elite talent like Nick Bosa along the edge. Yeah, the game plan to not blitz the Jags was interesting. I'll have to rewatch the game and really sort of figure out what Robert Saleh was trying to do there. But it was like Nick Wagner pointed out, they only blitzed on 19% of the dropbacks. I think he said they pressured Trevor Lawrence 4 times
Okay.
on his 31 dropbacks. So no quarterback hits, no sacks. It's obviously not going to be enough to get it done. So we'll see if the Niners can do that against the Rams on Thursday.
Did you
What'd you
see
make?
Liam
Yeah, I
Cohen?
was.
And
Yeah. Did you hear the audio from it?
I didn't hear the audio. Did he really say
So
something about keeping his name out of his mouth?
Liam Cohen was basically like, "Keep my name out your mouth," which is I thought that was like
That's so
when I
stupid.
when I s- yeah when I heard there were words shared between the two of them. It's like, bro, if you are stealing signs, which is not illegal, it's part of gamesmanship. Like, I don't have any problem with like stealing signs, but if you're gonna do stuff like that and you're a head coach in the NFL, you got to be willing to like you got to know that it might get talked about in the media.
It,
And so I don't think Robert Saleh did anything wrong by being like, yeah, we're going up against a coach who's an elaborate sign stealer, and like that's just one of the things that goes with playing the Jaguars. And I think Robert Saleh probably doesn't love it, and maybe is trying to call attention to it and putting it out there so other teams notice it. But honestly, like, if Liam Cohen's going to approach Robert Saleh and yell at him with microphones and cameras around post game, that's going to hip other coaches to it even more. Like, coaches throughout the league are going to know that Liam Cohen does this. So what
struck a
Liam
nerve.
Liam Cohen didn't deny it. He said, "Keep my name out of your mouth." And it's like, you're stealing
So
signs, dude. so like so if Liam Cohen just walked off the field and didn't say anything to Robert Saleh, no one's talking about it. Like, that was a very like under the radar thing. Like, there's no way we're talking about that if Liam Cohen doesn't yell at Robert Saleh post game. Like, I watched the press conference and read the transcript after Saleh spoke on Thursday, and just like didn't really think anything of it. But now I
yeah.
am, because Liam Cohen's yelling about it. So I don't know. It's just kind of to me, it's an unforced error for Liam Cohen. I don't have any problem with him stealing signs. I think that a lot of that type of stuff happens, but now he's just put like him yelling created a bunch of content that now a bunch more NFL coaches are going to see, and they're going to know that, like, oh, Liam Cohen's stealing signs. We got to switch this up.
Well, and I know you're not going to like to hear this, but there's way more things that happened that crossed the line with the whole Michigan sign stealing thing. But I always like at a very surface level thing, I was like, who cares? Like it's every single advantage you can get. But then they kind of cross the line where like the dude's
You
standing
cross the
on their own
line.
sideline, like you're on the
You
other like
you cross the line when you're buying tickets and doing like
right.
advanced scouting, and yeah, that
Well,
there's
and
there's a
there's a
line, but
picture of
doing
him
it,
standing on the other team's sideline. You're like, okay, like maybe
yeah.
let's leave that out. But like sign stealing, is that like in that sense, in its most basic sense, is that like the like one of the core tenets of just good coaching. Like, what are you just going to ignore the other sideline and never try to pick up anything that they're doing? Like, and the context of Robert Sala's full comment seemed like it was way more of a compliment than anything else. He was basically like, he was saying we have to completely reinvent our signs, or at the very least do a better job of hiding it. Otherwise, Liam Cohen's going to steal them. He's going to know what we're doing.
Yeah.
And to me, at the most basic level, Liam Cohen, the head coach and offensive coordinator, telling the defensive coordinator for the 49ers to keep his name out of his mouth. Like, who do you think he's going to talk about, man? Like, it's you versus him. Like, why would
Right.
he not mention your name? Like, it was so, like, to me, it's just so ego. Like, it's so soft. Like, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
man, he complimented you. Then Kyle Shanahan responded it the next day and said, "I'm pretty sure Robert Saleh was just trying to compliment you." And then your response to that after you win is not to be, and look, whatever, you're jawing back and forth. It's part of sports, but not to just shake hands and walk off as the winner, but to turn around while someone's pushing you away and say, "Keep my name out of your mouth." Like, dude, it's like, what? Like, it's like you just missed the forest. Like, it's
Right.
just so weird.
Also keep my name out of your mouth or what? Like Liam Cohen's not going to fight Robert Saleh. And
Mm,
even if he did, I would not bet on
You would
Liam
not
Cohen
be
to win
taking
that
Liam
fight.
Cohen. I'm not sure there's any other coach that I would take, or there aren't many that I would take over Robert Saleh. Like, that dude's
Yeah.
kind of an animal, but
Yeah. So
it
anyway,
was silly. It was dumb.
it was funny. It made me laugh.
I think you have a great point though in the fact that, like, all the other coaches are like, well, that hit a nerve, and they're going to give Liam Cohen just a little bit more attention than maybe they would have because he was obviously so offended by the topic.
Right. And there's a chance, like, when anytime stuff like that happens and you're the Jaguars and you're not a team that draws much national attention, the ESPN shows and the debate shows and the podcasts and everything will talk about that more so than your win. Like,
That's
oh, the
true.
Niners,
It is
the
a head
Niners,
coach overshadowing his team.
the Niners Jag segment is going to be all about Liam Cohen yelling at the Niners defensive coordinator, not, man, look at this Jaguars defense that went into San Francisco and forced 4 turnovers and, won a game by 5 points. Like, they needed all of those. So yeah, that's Liam Cohen's a first time coach. Maybe it's a learning experience for him, but yeah, I just thought the whole thing was funny. But I think we're going to call it.
We
It's
can
late
call
on a
it.
Sunday night. We appreciate everybody hanging out with us for the live show. Hey, everybody, make sure if you haven't loaded up on your Candlestick Chronicles Hazy IPA from Cooperage, please go do so, because it's not only phenomenal beer, but if you get it, you're a Niners fan. I presume you're a Niners fan if you're watching or listening to this podcast. You will be the envy of everybody at your tailgate. It is the sickest looking can. It's got a really cool logo of Candlestick Park on it. It's like half football, half like gold sheen, like the Niners helmet. It'll match all of the Niners gear that you're wearing. It'll match all your tailgate gear. And also the beer is amazing. And if you don't like hazies, Cooperage has every other type of beer, and they make it all at a really high level. So check them out in Santa Rosa or wherever they sell their beer. And you can get beer online at cooperagebrewing.com. They'll deliver it to your door as long as you're 21 or older and within the state of California. So anyway, that being said, we have an episode coming early this week with the Niners playing on a short week. We have another special guest since Kyle will continue to be indisposed, getting some much needed time off. But yeah, so keep it locked for that. Rob, thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight and talking to
Of
the good
course.
folks who are watching the live show. And where can people check you out?
Well, I tweet sometimes on Twitter or whatever it's called these days.
The everything app.
Yeah, at Rob_Louder. And then I record Striking Gold, and it's me on Sundays doing the takeaway time after every game. This one will obviously be on Thursday, and then KP usually jumps on KP show from Niners Nation. He usually jumps on during the midweek episodes, and then whatever else
Cool.
the 49ers gives us in between there.
Great. All right. Thanks, everybody. We will talk to you later in the week.